Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Many imams recite the Quran in a very fast way during the Taraweeh or Qiyam al-Layl. They also perform ruku and sujood in a fast manner, which makes it difficult for the followers to supplicate properly. Is it allowed to pray in this manner?
It is very common that many of the mosques, because they want to finish the full Quran in the month of Ramadan, in Taraweeh, and they want to make it as short as possible so people finish it, they do recite very fast, and very often you see that they go in the ruku and sujood very fast. And many a time, once I was in one of the mosques, and when the Imam went in the sujood, I went after him. He got up again, went again. I was yet in my full sujood and he was doing a second sujood. Allahu Akbar. So is it right or is it wrong? It's mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, in number 1, in the book of Salah, hadith number 757, that once the Prophet enters the mosque, and there is another man who follows him. He offers the salah. And after offering salah, that man, he wishes the Prophet, Assalamu alaikum. The Prophet greets back and says that go back and pray because you have not prayed. The man goes back and he comes back to the Prophet. The Prophet says, go back and pray, you have not prayed. Again, the person goes for the third time. He prays and he comes back. The Prophet again says, go back and pray, for you have not prayed, for the third time. So the man says, I cannot pray better than this. Oh Prophet, please teach me how to pray. So then the Prophet says that after saying the takbir, you recite while standing in the qiyam as much of the Quran that you know by heart, whatever the Quran you know by heart you recite. Then you bow down, go in your ruku, until you are at ease. And then say, Glory be to Allah, Subhana bin Nazim. Then stand up straight until you are at ease. Then go in sujood with calmness until you are at ease. And then say Subhana bin Allah, Glory be to Allah who is the Most High, thrice. Then get up again until you are at ease. And then continue your prayer like that. That means all, especially your ruku and your sujood. And when you get up from your ruku, and in between the sujood, you should be at ease. You can't go up and down fast. If you do that, it is as though your prayer has not been accepted, as though you have not prayed. So if you pray in this fast manner, Taraweeh, where ruku, sujood and fast, it is as though you have not prayed. So it is best that you pray slowly, with calmness. And if you really feel that you can't offer 20, then offer 8 rakat, but with peace, with ease, and with calmness. The best is that with peace, ease and calmness, and long. Taraweeh should be long. It should not be having competition with the other mosques, which we have many times. When the many mosques, they compete, who is going to finish the Taraweeh faster?
Yes, that's very unfortunate, but it's true. Well, next question is it compulsory that the Imam should recite the complete Quran in the nights of Ramadan in Taraweeh? Is it necessary that the followers should listen to the whole of the Quran in Taraweeh? So 2 parts to the question.
There is no hadith in which the Prophet has mentioned or in Sahaba that it is compulsory to recite the full Quran. It is preferable, it is mustahab. It's better because if you recite as much as the Quran in the month of Ramadan, it's good for you. So many people may not be reciting at home. So at least during the Qiyamul Layl in Ramadan, the people at least listen to the Quran. So it's preferable, it's not a fard. But naturally, if it's recited in the Qiyamul Layl, it's obligatory for the muqtadi, for the people praying behind to listen. But it's not a fard that you should recite the full Quran. But most of the mosques, majority of the mosques, complete the Quran because it's good, mashallah. There are some mosques which I know that it becomes difficult for people to listen because, if you have to recite the full Quran, the full month of Ramadan, it is about 1 juz a day, somewhere close to that. And it becomes difficult. So there are some mosques which pray half juz on average. So they finish half the Quran in the full month of Ramadan. Next Ramadan, they finish the next half. All is acceptable, but it's preferable to finish the full Quran. Unless you know that there are small children and they cannot offer. So 1 or 2 mosques have it, alhamdulillah, no problem. But preferable to finish the full Quran, but it's not compulsory.
Next question. Where should a woman pray Taraweeh? I think we've partly answered this question. At home or in the masjid? If she prays at home, can she lead the congregation or a congregation of women?
It's mentioned in Sahih Targhib, hadith number 336, where the beloved Prophet said that the best mosque for a woman is her innermost room, her innermost chamber. And the best place for a woman to pray is her inner room. That's the best. And in another hadith of Musnad Ahmad, volume number 6, hadith number 27202, which also mentioned in Sahih Targhib, hadith number 335, once a lady asked the Prophet, I would love to pray with you, the lady said. And the Prophet replied, I know you'd love to pray with me, but your prayer in your inner room would be better than praying in your house. The prayer in your house would be better than praying in the courtyard. Your praying in your courtyard would be better than praying in the mosque where you live, where around your people. Your praying in the mosque where you live, around your people, is better than praying in my mosque. That means for a woman, the best prayer is the inner room.
MashaAllah.
And the way is hadith that praying in your room is better than the house better than the courtyard better than the mosque in your area, then mosque in your better than the mosque of the Prophet. Though the Prophet said, it's mentioned in Sahih Muslim, volume number 2, hadith number 3210, that praying in my mosque is equivalent to 1,000 prayers. That means if you pray in the mosque of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it's equal to praying 1,000 times in any other mosque. But this hadith is mainly referring to the men, because no two Sahih hadith can contradict. So this hadith mainly refers to the men. For the women, the best place is the house, especially her inner room. And there's a hadith in Sunan Abu Dawud, volume number 1, book of Salah, hadith number 591. Warqa, may Allah be pleased with her.
Ameen.
She comes to the Prophet and says that I would like to have a muaddin in my house, and the Prophet gave her permission. The next hadith, Sunan Abu Dawud, volume number 1, book of Salah, hadith number 592, it says that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he went to a house after appointing the muaddin, and he asked her to lead the prayer in congregation, and the women in the house, they joined her. And the narrator says that he saw the muaddin, he was the old person. It's further mentioned in a Sahih hadith of Bayhaqi, hadith number 1922. Hazrat Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, who's the wife of the Prophet, she says that she led the congregation of the women. She was the imam, but she stood in the middle of the row. And another hadith in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, hadith number 4953, say Salma, who was also the wife of the Prophet, may Allah be pleased with her.
Ameen.
Even she said that she was the imam of a congregation of women, and she was standing in the center of the first row. So here it indicates that the women, they can pray, but it is better for them to pray in the inner room, better than going in the mosque. But they are permitted to go in the mosque, as we discussed earlier yesterday, that praying in the mosque is permitted, but for them the inner room is better than the house is better than the courtyard better than the mosque close to them, than the mosque of the Prophet. But they can pray, they can go to the mosque. If they pray at home, they can have a congregation, there's no problem at all, and a woman can lead the congregation according to the various hadith. The most grievous amongst the errors in the first category, that is errors committed regarding the obligatory rules and regulations of fasting, is the most common is that Muslims, many a times, they don't do the niyyah for fasting. Intention is very important. Without niyyah, without intention, the fasting is not accepted. So making intention is obligatory. And we'll be discussing this, inshallah, in detail, inshallah, tomorrow. The second error is that many a times Muslims, even after the Fajr Azan has started, yet they continue eating. And they think that the end of Suhur time is only at the end of the Fajr Azan. In fact, the moment the Fajr Azan starts, the moment the beginning of dawn starts, the Suhur time ends. So this is error which normally nullifies or invalidates the fast. The third error in the first category is that many people, they delay paying their zakatul fitr. And many times they pay after the Eid al-Fitr Salah. If we pay the zakatul fitr after Eid al-Fitr, then it is like normal charity. It does not come under the zakatul fitr. So these three are the most grievous in the first category. The common errors committed in the second category, that is errors that are contradicting the sunnah of the fasting, is number one, many people, they skip their suhoor. Some people, they have an early suhoor. That is, they have the suhoor 1 or 2 hours before the Fajr time. In fact, suhoor is a blessing. Every Muslim should have it. And the Prophet said, we should delay the suhoor as much as possible. We should have it till just before the Fajr time. The third mistake committed by Muslims in this category is that they delay opening their fast. They delay the iftar. And our Prophet ﷺ said that the people will be good as long as they hasten in breaking the iftar. That means immediately after sunset, they should break the iftar. The fourth common error in this category is that many Muslims, they read unauthentic dua during iftar. The most authentic dua, as far as iftar is concerned, is Zahab al-Zama, Wabtallati uruku, wa sabat al-arj, inshallah. Which means that my thirst is quenched, the veins are moistened, and the ajr is near, inshallah, God willing. The reward is near, God willing. And some people, when they read this dua for breaking the fast, they say it before breaking the fast. Before they put their date in the mouth, they say this, and it is contrary to the meaning. The meaning says that my thirst has been quenched. Zahaba zama, wabtallati uruku. My thirst has been quenched, and the veins have been moistened. Your thirst cannot be quenched before breaking the fast. So normally it should be said after you eat the khujur, after you have water and you're satisfied, maybe after some minutes, after you break the fast, then you can read this dua. Zahaba zama, wabtallati uruku, wa sabat al-ajr, inshallah. Which means, my thirst has been quenched. The veins have been moistened. The reward is near, inshallah, God willing. The sixth common error made by Muslims in this category is that many Muslims, they eat excessively during iftar. And many of them even eat throughout the night. The seventh common error is that many of them, they are negligent as far as Taraweeh is concerned. Because Taraweeh is not a fard, they think it is no problem if a Muslim misses Taraweeh. Though Taraweeh is not a fard, it is a very important sunnah. And a Muslim who misses Taraweeh is missing a great deal of reward. And many Muslims who perform Taraweeh, they read Taraweeh very fast, 100 miles per hour. They try and finish it in a short time, and they defeat the purpose. In fact, you should read with a moderate pace so that people understand and they grasp the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ninth common error is that those who go for itikaf in the mosque, many of them, they socialize during itikaf, as though it's a time to meet people and friends, which is totally contrary to the sunnah. The 10th common error is that many of the Muslims think that the Laylatul Qadr is on the 27th night of Ramadan. And they only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this night. In fact, the beloved Prophet ﷺ said, search for the Laylatul Qadr in the odd nights of the last 10 days, the last Ashra, the 10 days. Therefore, Laylatul Qadr can fall either on the 21st night, or 23rd, or 25th, or 27th, or 29th. So this is one of the common errors made by Muslims. The 11th common error is that they spend their time during Ramadan in unproductive work, rather than spending in zikr and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They should spend their time rather for offering, besides the compulsory salah, the nawafil, the voluntary salah, the sunnah salah. The 12th error made by the Muslims is that they should do dua. The 13th is they should ask for forgiveness. This is month of forgiveness. 14th is they should read the Quran as much as possible to get the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The 15th is that they fast and they keep themselves hungry, but basically they're not mentally prepared for that fast. And it is as though they're staying hungry. But the main purpose of fasting, to acquire taqwa, is not obtained. This was in brief regarding the second category.
Can you mention briefly, again, categorize the common errors made in the third category?
The common errors committed by Muslims in the third category, that is errors regarding negligence in performing the fara'id, the obligatory duties in Islam, is that Muslims, many of them, they stay awake the full night. They have an early suhr, and these people, they do not offer the Fajr Salah. Missing Fajr Salah is a sin. Many of them, because they stay awake the full night, they sleep the full day, and they even miss their Zuhr and the Asr Salah, which is a grave sin. You're trying to acquire blessings, and you are neglecting the obligatory duties, which is totally prohibited. Many of the Muslims, they do not give zakat. Those are supposed to give zakat. And zakat is one of the pillars of Islam in which every Muslim who has a saving of the nisab level, that is, those who have a saving of 85 grams of gold, they should give 2.5% of their savings every lunar year in charity. It's called as zakat. And the fourth error in this third category is that most of the Muslims give zakat, but they do not calculate the zakat properly. As far as common errors committed by Muslims in the month of Ramadan, that is indulging in prohibited acts, the most common is, though these acts are prohibited for a Muslim, irrespective whether it's a month of Ramadan or non-Ramadan, but specifically, we should be more careful. We should be careful trying to avoid these acts throughout our life. But in Ramadan, we should be more careful. And the most common, number one, where Muslims involve themselves is backbiting and slandering. Backbiting is a grave sin. And Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Hujurat, chapter 49, verse number 12, that those who backbite, they are people who eat the dead meat of their own brother. So backbiting and slandering is one of the gravest sins. The second common error in this category is Muslims, many of them, they use false speech. They tell lies during the month of Ramadan. The third is they use abusive language, which is contrary to the spirit of Islam and of Ramadan. The fourth is they use vulgar language. And the fifth is they involve themselves in gossiping. The sixth is some of them involve in false action. The seventh is many of the Muslims, to kill time, they listen to music and un-Islamic songs, which is totally prohibited in Islam. The eighth common error is many of the Muslims, to kill time, they watch un-Islamic television programs and un-Islamic movies. The ninth common error committed by Muslim is that many of the Muslims, they read un-Islamic magazines, un-Islamic books, un-Islamic pictures, which are all prohibited in Islam. The 10th common error done by Muslims in this month is many of them, they go to un-Islamic sites on the internet, which is again prohibited. The 11th common error is that they spend excessively and they commit extravagance. And the 12th is there is a lot of wastage of food. So this was in brief regarding the list of mistakes done by Muslims commonly in the third category. That is, indulging in acts which are prohibited and neglecting acts which are farz in Islam.
So, Dr. Zakir, what are the other common errors committed by Muslims during the month of Ramadan?
The other common errors committed by Muslims in the month of Ramadan, that is the fourth category, is number one is that many of the Muslims, they stay awake the full night and then they sleep in the day. And they do the normal activity at the night time and sleep in the daytime. They're converting day into night and night into day, and the whole purpose of fasting is defeated. The second error in this category is that many of the Muslims, they remain lazy and they're inactive during the daytime, which is contrary to the spirit of fasting. The third common error is that many of the Muslims, they try and kill their time during the day by playing, by amusement, by games, which defeats the purpose again. The fourth common error is Muslims, they give lavish iftar parties and they spend a lot of money, mainly trying to show off. The fifth common error, many of the Muslims, they ask the women folk in their family to prepare a variety of dishes for iftar and for suhoor, thus making the women in the family spend the majority of the time in the kitchen. In fact, the family should spend most of the time in remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if the women folk do more du'as, inshallah, even the men will benefit. Even their sins will be forgiven, inshallah. The sixth common error is that many of the Muslims, they renovate their house and their shop in the month of Ramadan, spend more time in that than remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The seventh common error is that many of the Muslims, they spend their nights, instead of remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in activities which are unproductive. For example, they spend their time in excessive socializing after Taraweeh. That is the eighth error. Ninth is, many of the Muslims, they spend many nights and most parts of their nights in shopping. The 10th common error is, many of the Muslims, they spend most of the time in the night in eating. The 11th is, many of the Muslims, they spend their time in roaming and in loitering during the night. And the 12th common error is, the last 10 days of Ramadan are mainly the days in which the Muslims should do more ibadah. But most of the Muslims, they spend time in shopping, in celebrating, and preparing themselves for Eid. And most of them spend time in activities which are unproductive rather than spending the time in ibadah. These are some of the other common errors which Muslims commit, and I hope, inshallah, that they will abstain from these errors in future.
Inshallah. Ajmain. So the next question is, are there any common errors that you can mention relationship to culture and country?
All the errors that I mentioned earlier were general Muslims throughout the world. There are some errors which are made mainly by people living in a certain country, belonging to a certain culture. For example, in the Indian subcontinent, there are people living in India, in Pakistan, in Sri Lanka. During Ramadan, many of the Muslims, in the night, they play night cricket. And they spend most of the time in night cricket rather than doing ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this playing night cricket is more common in the Indian subcontinent. Now, if you go to the Arab countries, especially the Gulf countries, there, many of the offices, many of the working places, that is in the market, etc., they change their timings. They hardly work for a couple of hours in the daytime, and they open most of the time during night. So what happens? It encourages people to do shopping in the night rather than the day, and they get more business, and they're inviting people rather in spending time in remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muslims spend their time in shopping and eating during night time. And furthermore, those people who are employed in these shops, they are forced to come at night time because it's their duty. So these Muslims are even preventing their employees, rather than remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're involving themselves in business and spending most of the time in activities which are not according to the sunnah.
अस्सलामु अलैकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू। नाज़रीन, कैसे हो सब? उम्मीद करता हूँ कि अब सब लोग ठीक ठाक होंगे, खैर खैरियत से होंगे। ویڈیو آپ لوگوں نے دیکھ لی ہے اور کافی جو ہے بہترین سوال کیا تھا ڈاکٹر ذاکر نائک سے اس اینکر نے، اور یقین کرے دل خوش ہو گیا میرا۔ سوال یہ تھا کہ بہت سے قاری اور علماء جو ہے اور بہت سے مساجد میں قرآن کے ختم ہوتے ہیں تراویح میں، اور وہ جو ہے تلاوت کافی زیادہ تیز کرتے ہیں۔ اس کا جواب آپ لوگوں نے ڈاکٹر ذاکر نائک کی زبانی بھی سن لیا، اور میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ اس طرح کے ٹاپکس پر بات ہونی چاہیے، حالانکہ لوگ جو ہے اس کے بجائے اس پر بات کرتے ہیں کہ تراویح 8 ہے یا 20 ہے، تو اس ٹاپک کو جو ہے اتنا نہیں چڑھنا چاہیے جتنا کہ اس ٹاپک کا چڑھنا ضروری ہے۔ میں اکثر مساجد میں دیکھتا ہوں، ابھی چونکہ رمضان چل رہا ہے اور اس طرح کی ویڈیوز آپ کو ٹک ٹاک فیس بک پر دیکھنے کو ملتی ہے کہ جس میں لوگ جو ہے وہ اتنی تیز تلاوت کرتے ہیں کہ خود بھی جو وہ تلاوت کر رہا ہوتا ہے، میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ اس کو بھی سمجھ نہیں آ رہا ہوگا، اور اس کے پیچھے جو حافظ کھڑا ہوتا ہے، میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ اس کو بھی پتہ نہیں ہوتا کہ یہ آگے جو میرا قاری جو ہے، امام جو پڑھ رہا ہے، وہ کون سی جگہ پر تلاوت کر رہا ہے اور کیا پڑھ رہا ہے۔ یقین کریں میں نے ایسی ویڈیوز بھی دیکھی ہے فیس بک اور ٹک ٹاک پر کہ جس میں یہ امام صاحب جو ہے وہ اتنی تیز تلاوت کرتا ہے کہ اگر میں وہ ویڈیو کسی حافظ کو دکھا دوں تو وہ بھی نہ سمجھ پائے گا کہ یہ پڑھ کیا رہا ہے اور یہ کس جگہ کی تلاوت ہو رہی ہے۔ تو اس طرح کی چیزوں کو جو ہے ہمیں ہائی لائٹ کرنا چاہیے، اور ہمارے علماء کو چاہیے کہ ان مسئلوں پر بات کرے، نہ کہ ان مسئلوں پر بات کرے جو کہ اختلافی ہے۔ اب یہ مسئلہ کسی بھی علماء کا اختلافی نہیں ہے کہ نماز جو ہے اس طرح نہ پڑھی جائے یا اس طرح پڑھی جائے، اس پر سب کا اتفاق ہے کہ نماز کو جو ہے وہ خشوع سے پڑھا جائے، اور جتنا تلاوت سلو کر سکتے ہیں، جتنے آرام سے آپ تراویح پڑھ سکتے ہیں اتنے پڑھے۔ ہمارے لوگوں کی کوشش کیا ہوتی ہے کہ زیادہ سے زیادہ ختم کرے روزوں میں، اور زیادہ سے زیادہ تراویح کرے، حالانکہ اس میں خشوع ہو نہ ہو، اس کی ہمیں سمجھ آئے نہ آئے، لیکن یہ ضرور ہونا چاہیے کہ ہم عید کے دن کہہ سکیں کہ ہم نے اس رمضان میں 3 ختم کیے ہیں، یا اس میں ہم نے 5 ختم کیے ہیں، اور ہم نے جو ہے 20 تراویح پڑھی ہے، حالانکہ ان کو پتہ نہیں ہوتا کہ 20 تراویح انہوں نے کتنے ٹائم میں پڑھی ہے۔ یقین کرے ایسے مساجد بھی ہے کہ جس میں 20 تراویح جو ہے وہ 20 منٹ کے اندر جو ہے وہ ختم ہو جاتی ہے، تو بندہ حیران رہ جاتا ہے کہ کس لیے یہ عبادت ہو رہی ہے۔ اگر آپ لوگ مقصد دیکھیں تو اس مقصد کے لحاظ سے یہ عبادت جو ہے میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ بالکل جو ہے ناجائز ہے، کیونکہ مقصد ہمارا یہ ہے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ ہم سے راضی ہو جائے اور وہ خوش ہو جائے، اور عبادت ہم اس طرح کر رہے ہیں کہ جو نہ آپ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کا طریقہ تھا، نہ جو ہے صحابہ کا طریقہ تھا، نہ ہمارے 4 جو امام ہیں ان کا طریقہ تھا، اور نہ جو ہے سلف صالحین کا طریقہ تھا، کسی کا بھی جو ہے یہ طریقہ نہیں ہے جو آج کل ہو رہے ہیں۔ تو اس طرح کے مسئلوں کو ہمیں ہائی لائٹ کرنا چاہیے، اور جہاں پر بھی آپ کسی عالم کو دیکھتے ہیں کہ جو اس طرح کے مسئلے ہائی لائٹ کرتا ہے اور ان پر بات کرتا ہے، تو اس طرح کی ویڈیوز کو زیادہ سے زیادہ لائک کر کے اور شیئر زیادہ کیا کرے، کومنٹ زیادہ کیا کرے، تاکہ اور لوگوں کو بھی اس کے بارے میں پتہ چلے کہ اعمال جو ہے وہ گنے نہیں جائیں گے بلکہ تولے جائیں گے، اور نماز جو ہے اور تراویح جتنی بھی ہے یہ ہمیں خشوع اور خضوع سے پڑھنے چاہیے، اور ان مساجد میں جانا چاہیے کہ جس میں تراویح جو ہے وہ اچھی طریقے سے پڑھائی جاتی ہے، نہ کہ ان مساجد میں کہ جن میں نہ آپ کو سمجھ آتا ہے، نہ امام کو سمجھ آتا ہے، اور نہ لوگوں کو سمجھ آتا ہے، بس ایک ایکسرسائز کے طور پر جو ہے جلدی 20 تراویح ہو جاتی ہے، اور پھر جو ہے اللہ خیر صلی اللہ اور سب لوگ جو ہے چل جاتے۔ تو اس طرح کے مساجد میں جایا کرے کہ جس میں تراویح آرام سے پڑھی جاتی ہے، حالانکہ اگر اس میں 8 پڑھی جائے، جتنی بھی پڑھی جاتی ہے وہاں پر جائے اور وہاں پر جو ہے اپنی تراویح پڑھا کرے۔ باقی اس مسئلے کے بارے میں آپ لوگوں کی کیا رائے ہے، اپنی رائے بھی کومنٹ سیکشن میں ہمارے ساتھ شیئر کر سکتے ہیں۔ مزید اس طرح کی ویڈیوز کے لیے ہمارے چینل کو ضرور سبسکرائب کریں۔ السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ۔